Hi everybody, it's Honest John again. If you look back at World War II, Germany was this close to winning the whole thing. They had the strongest army, which conquered continental Europe in no time. They had the best technology, including the MX missile. They had the best tanks and some very excellent military strategies. Now, there were a lot of factors in their loss. They were fighting on two fronts. Japan was an unreliable ally which refused to attack Russia, and so Germany was stuck with that fight. Hitler was reluctant to invade England, even though he could have taken the place. And of course, there was the entry of the USA into the war, which sealed the deal. But one thing that can't be overestimated is the information factor. Early in the war, the British broke the German spy ring, captured every one of their spies. Instead of executing them or throwing them in prison, they turned them all and controlled the information that Germany was getting about England. They also broke the Germans' Enigma code. And from that point on, the British knew exactly what the Germans were up to, but the Germans had false information about the situation in England. At one point, the British knew the Germans were launching a bombing raid on the city of Coventry. They could have intercepted that raid, but that would have tipped the Germans off about what the British knew. So they let the raid happen. And they held on to that information until they could use it to actually win the war. One of the reasons the invasion of Normandy was such a success was that Germany was fed information that we were landing at Calais. And they concentrated the bulk of their forces there. Flash forward to today in the United States, and we have today's conservatives. Unlike the Germans, the information that is available to everybody else is available to them. They just choose to ignore it. So even though the polls clearly showed that they were going down to defeat in the last election, they just made up their own polls and confidently predicted a huge win, which didn't happen. It was funny watching people like Karl Rove insisting that Romney was winning, even during the time when it was apparent he had no chance. And of course, many conservatives believe Acorn stole the election despite the fact that it hasn't existed in years. Recently, Ron Paul, in questioning Hillary Clinton about Benghazi, made a complete ass of himself by asking a question about gun smuggling based on a fantasy made up by Matt Drudge and Glenn Beck. As in a continuing bout of ignorance, as the glaciers and the ice caps melt, the oceans rise, and storms inflict ever-increasing amounts of damage, costing us billions, conservatives continue to insist that nothing is happening. The Republicans in the House refuse to pass a jobs or infrastructure bill based on the belief that government can't create jobs, even though this is patently untrue. And our infrastructure is desperately in need of repairs. All one has to do is read about FDR's response to the Great Depression to see that a Jobs Act and an infrastructure bill would have gone a long way towards improving our financial situation. And yet the GOP refused to allow anything to be done. And despite the fact that conservative economic policies have been absolutely proven to be a disaster, the Romney campaign and the RNC insisted during the last election that a return to those policies was the way to prosperity. And they wonder why they lost. And the idea that women who are raped cannot get pregnant is a widely held conservative belief. That is, once again, something that was simply made up by evangelical Christians. The facts are out there. They are as available to conservatives as they are to everyone else. But you won't find them on Fox News or Rush Limbaugh or Glenn Beck or the conservative blogosphere. And as long as conservatives depend on those sources for information, they will continue to struggle with facts. Thanks for listening.